This video is going to cover how to solve one-step equations. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's review. First off, what is an equation? An equation is anything that includes an equal sign. When we are solving, the goal is to isolate the variable. In other words, we are trying to get that variable by itself. So we've spent so much time using this word variable. What is it that we're talking about? We are talking about the letter that is included in my equation. The letter in the equation. All right, let's look kind of at a visual representation. So this is a visual representation of an equation. You can see that it says 3 plus x equals 5. So notice my picture. What I have is 3 little cubes that represents this 3. The variable is what represents the x. And I've got these 5 cubes on the other side that represent this 5. And right now my scale is balanced. Well, if my goal is to figure out how many little cubes make up this box right here, how could I figure that out? Well, what I can do is if I take these 3 cubes off of this side, and remember, what you do to one side, you must do to the other side to keep my scale balanced. If I take 3 cubes off of this side, I only have my variable left over. Okay, I only have my x left over, and I have how many cubes remaining? Well, if I took away 3, I have just these 2 cubes over here remaining. So that is exactly what I'm going to do in equation. I'm going to do the same thing on one side as I do on the other and figure out what that variable, or in this case, my x is equal to 2. This green square is made up of 2 cubes. Let's talk about inverse operations. In order to solve these equations, I need to use the inverse to undo the operation. So let's talk about inverses. The opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of division is multiplication. The opposite of subtraction is addition. So notice these 2 operations are undoing each other. And the opposite of multiplication is division. Notice these 2 operations are undoing each other. So let's go ahead and practice. What I need to do first is decide, I'm going to visualize this as a scale. I'm going to draw a line down my equal sign that represents where my scale is balancing. It's balancing on this equal sign. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my variable. Where is my variable? It's right here on this side, on the left side of the line. I want to isolate that variable. I want to get it by itself. So I need to ask myself, what operation is going on right here? What do I mean by operation? I mean, am I subtracting from x? Am I adding from x? Am I multiplying x by something? What is it that I'm doing? Well, if I were to read this line, I'd say x minus 7 equals negative 6. So the operation that's happening is subtraction. So the first step is to identify the operation. So step number 1, identify the operation. And step number 2 is undo that operation. Okay, if I am subtracting 7, I need to undo that operation and I need to add 7. To undo, I'm going to add. So underneath this minus 7, I'm going to write a plus sign. Okay, these operations I'm going to undo each other. 7. So notice what happens. If I were to type in my calculator, and I'm actually going to type it in this calculator for the first time. Okay, positive 7 minus 7. What is it that I get? I get a 0. My purpose in undoing is to 0 or to get these to disappear. we're going to call them zero them out. So when I get a big 0, I can cross them out and pretend like they're not even there. Now remember, this is a scale, it's a balancing point. And right now, because I added something to the scale, side of the scale on the left, this side is heavier. So I need to even out my scale by doing the same on the opposite side. So because I added 7, I'm going to add 7. Notice this line, I have the same operation going on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what that results. What is negative 6 plus 7? Negative 6 plus 7 is 1. So x is equal to 1. Notice I didn't write anything about the z's because those are gone. Those zeroed out. And I just bring down the x. So my answer is 1. Now I can always check my answer by looking back at the original problem. I'm going to erase this for a second. I can always test this by evaluating it. This is saying another name for x is 1. I'm going to go back up to my first line. If I replace x with a 1 and minus 7, do I get negative 6? Well, 1 minus 7, if I type that in my calculator, is negative 6. This checks out, so this is the correct solution. Okay, let's try example number 2. What do I get? Okay, what operation is going on? So number 1, what operation is going on? This says y plus 7. So the operation I'm going to identify is addition. How do I undo that operation? To undo the operation, I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to draw my balancing point. I'm going to identify my variable. It's right over here. The operation is addition, so I'm going to write underneath the addition sign, subtract. What was I adding? I was adding 3.4, so I'm going to subtract 3.4. And remember, I've got to keep my scale balanced, so if I do it on the left side of the scale, I need to do it on the right side. And I'm going to simplify. Y, if I add straight down, nothing's happening with my y, so I'm going to bring it down. 3.4 minus 3.4 is 0, so I'm going to put a big Z for that equals to 0. And if something equals to 0, it's imaginary. It's gone. I don't have to write it. I'm going to bring down my equal sign, and now I'm going to type in my calculator 0.5 subtract 3.4. 0.5 subtract 3.4, and I get negative 2.9. So my answer is negative 2.9. Heads up. So there are a few type of problems that I want you to be aware of. So the first one is this. Now if I look at this problem right here, it says negative 24 plus w equals 10. Now our first step after I draw my balancing sign is to identify the operation. What operation is going on here? Now, as I look at this, I can see that it looks like addition is going on. But what I want you to do before we solve anything is rewrite this problem so that the variable comes first. And I want you to see what happens. So we're going to rewrite this problem. And I'm going to take this portion right here and I'm going to write an equivalent expression. The w is positive, so I'm going to write down w, and the 24 is negative, so I'm going to write down minus 24. Now notice, since these are equivalent expressions, it doesn't matter what order I write them in. Also notice that now we can see that we are not actually adding 24, we're subtracting 24. When I was looking at this problem right here, it says that we're adding a negative 24. So the trick on this problem is to rewrite it so that the variable comes first. And then undo that operation. So my operation actually is subtraction. So I'm going to undo with addition. I'm going to draw my balancing line. I'm going to write plus 24, plus 24. 0, that zeroes out, and I am left with on the left-hand side W, and on the right-hand side 34. Make sure you bring down your equal sign, and this was my final answer. Now, if you say to yourself, I don't want to rewrite it, that's okay. But remember, if I identify the operation as a plus sign and I minus, I need to make sure I minus a negative 24. Remember, minusing a negative means I add. So I'm going to end up doing the same operation. This just takes they both take 2 steps. You just have to decide what steps that you want to take. All right, let's look at this next problem. This next problem is my other heads up, because after I draw my balancing side, what side is the variable on? This time it's on this side. A lot of the times people get trapped into thinking that they always have to remove what's ever on this side, and they subtract 15. Okay, well, that doesn't isolate the variable, because I'm not getting rid of the number that's with the variable. The 7 is with the variable, so that's what I'm going to get rid of. Here's my variable. What operation is going on? Addition is going on. So step number 2, how I'm going to undo it. I'm going to undo it with subtraction. Since it says plus 7, I'm going to minus 7. So 15 minus 7 is a grand total of 8. K is equal to 8. Then I can rewrite it. Great. Okay, your turn. Take a second, pause the video, and try this one on your own. Okay, and we're back. Let's go ahead and identify what operation is going on. Subtraction is going on. Step number 2, I'm going to undo with addition. Here's my line. Here's the J. I'm going to undo the subtract 12 by adding 12. J is equal to 16. All right, now that we've talked about addition and subtraction, let's talk about multiplication and division. I'm going to continue to, number 1, identify the operation. What is the operation that's going on? And number 2, how do I undo? So if I look at this equation, I'm going to draw my balancing points. I'm going to decide where my variable is. There it is. Now I'm going to decide what operation is going on. Now there's no symbols that indicate what operation is going on, but remember, 7m is the same as 7 times m. So the operation on this problem that's going on is multiplication. How am I going to undo that? I'm going to undo that with division. Now, I'm not going to write the little division sign. Okay, now that we're in junior high, instead of this division symbol, we're going to use the fraction bar as division. So we're going to do divided by 7. And remember, we're going to balance it out. On one side, we've got to do the same thing on the other. 7 divided by 7 is, now this doesn't zero out, this 1's out. And I get 1m equals, what is 21 divided by 7? Let's type that in our calculator. And we get 3. Once I have 1m, remember 1 is imaginary, so I can erase it. My answer is m equals 3. Okay, let's look at this next problem. Okay, draw my balancing point, identify where my variable is. There it is. What operation is going on? Well, we just looked at this previous problem. We talked about how division is that fraction bar. So this is division. So step number 1, identify the operation. Division. How are we going to undo it? We're going to undo with multiplication. Well, what was it that I was dividing by? I'm dividing by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2. And if I do it to one side, I'm going to do it to the other. On the right-hand side, it says I'm timesing by 2, and then I'm going to divide by 2. Those cancel each other out, leaving me with x, an equal sign, and 20 times 2 is 40. So my answer to that one is 40. Your turn. Try this next one on your own. All right, let's check it. Draw my bouncing sign. Here's my variable. What's the operation? The operation is multiplication. How am I going to undo it? Division. I'm going to divide. What is it that I'm multiplying by? I'm multiplying by -4, so I got to do that on both sides. Timesing by -4 and dividing by -4, they eliminate each other, and I'm left with C. 20 divided by -4 is -5. Now there is a special type of problem. We call it special because there's the fraction, and we know fractions are kind of tough, but that's okay. What we are going to do is we are going to treat it as special, and we're going to treat it like a multiplication type of problem, but we're going to flip and multiply. So here's what's going to happen. Even though this is a multiplication problem, we are going to get rid of this by flipping and multiplying. We are going to multiply by 3/2. Notice that that's just this fraction flipped upside down. So I'm going to come over here this side, and I'm going to multiply by 3/2. What happens is I'm timesing by 3 and dividing by 3, and timesing by 3 and timesing by 2 and dividing by 2. So those eliminate each other, and I'm left with x equals, and I don't expect you to do that in your head, but -14 times fraction 3/2 gives me -21 as my answer. Your turn. Take a second, pause the video, and try this one. All right, so our special type of problem are flip and our multiply. So I'm going to, whenever I have a fraction, I'm going to flip my fraction, 7/5, and I'm going to multiply it. And remember, here's my bouncing point. What I do to one side, I have to do the other. Multiply by 7/5. Timesing by 7 and dividing by 7 eliminates itself. 5 timesing by 5 and dividing by 5 eliminates itself. And on the left-hand side, I'm left with A. And on the right-hand side, I'm left with, well, let's check it. 20 times 7/5 is 28. So A equals 28. If you feel good with one-step equations, go ahead and press pause and start on your assignment. Otherwise, we're going to practice here a few problems. We're going to do a lightning round just to make sure that you've got that practice down. So, number 1, draw my line. What operation, where's my variable? On this side. What operation is going on? It says z plus 6. So addition, how am I going to undo it? I'm going to undo it with subtraction. Subtract 6 on the left-hand side. Subtract 6. Zeros out on the right. And I'm left with z. 10 minus 6 is 4. There's my answer. Number 2, draw my line. Identify where my variable is. There it is. What operation is going on? Multiplication. How am I going to undo that? Division. So divide by 8 on one side, divide by 8 on the other. I'm left with y equals 6. Next problem. Draw my boundary. Where's my variable? Right here. What operation is going on? This says q minus 12. So subtraction is what's going on. How am I going to undo that? Addition. Underneath, I'm going to do that addition. Plus 12. It's a balancing scale, so do it on both sides. I'm left with q is equal to, this zeroes out, 13. Where's my variable? It's over here. What operation is going on? It's division this time. How am I going to undo it? Multiplication. I'm dividing by 2, so I'm going to multiply by 2. Multiplying and dividing cancels out. 2 times 18 is 36. I'd use my calculator for that one. A equals 36. Last but not least, and this was the tricky one, remember? Here's my line. Where's my variable? It's right here. You might identify that operation as addition, but remember, if I subtract, I need to subtract a -4. So my recommendation, just make sure the variable comes first. I'm going to rewrite it. Positive W, and that's a -4, so -4. And then copy this down, equals -12. The operation that's actually going on is subtraction. How do I undo subtraction? I'm going to undo it with addition, so +4. W is equal to, what is -12 plus 4? Let's just check it on here. -12 plus 4 is -8. And all right, that is one-step equations. If you have any questions, please reach out to your teacher and have a great day.